we need to look at the fact that we have made a bad turn on the road of life here. All right, so if you turn to Jeremiah chapter 29, and we're going to look at verse 11. We've got to know the nature of God. You know, Jesus and his disciples were on their way to Jerusalem. He was going to be crucified. And they went by this village. And the disciples expected the villagers to come out and pay him homage, and they didn't come out. And so they came up with this great idea. They said, Master, why don't we do what Elijah did? He called fire down from heaven and burned them all up. And they suggested that to Jesus. And Jesus said, you don't know what spirit you're of. He said, he didn't come to burn people up. He came to rescue people. He came to save you and me. If everybody that did wrong instantly got burned up, we'd all be gone. And now we can sit back and analyze and say, well, yeah, I'm bad, but I'm not as bad as them. You know, they'll burn before I will. Well, the Word says if you're guilty in one point of the law, you're guilty of all the law. You know, we have these tendencies to measure out who's the worst among us, but then the Bible commands us not to judge one another. Judge not lest you be judged. And the only person that you're actually told to judge in the whole Bible is you. And the people that are running around judging you on what you do and where you go and what you say and so forth, they're out of order. Now, you can truly have folks that are concerned about you. For instance, if we see somebody smoking marijuana, it's not wrong to judge the event and say that's not good for you, but don't judge their heart. Don't judge whether they are born again or not. You say, well, you'll know a tree by the fruit it produces, and you know people by their fruits. What you'll know is they're doing things that are destructive to themselves. I've had some situations in my life. I remember when I first started pastoring down here, had this man who was already engulfed in sin. And the power of God was so strong on the church. And there would be Sunday nights when I would be preaching, and the back doors of the little church would open up, and he'd come running in, crying, say, Woody, help me. Tears running down his face. Help me. Help me. Help me, Woody. Help me. And he'd come to the altar. And I'd pray over him, and we'd knock those spirits off of him. And he asked Jesus Christ to come into his heart. And I did his funeral. They found him dead underneath a railroad trestle up in Pennsylvania where he'd been sniffing glue. And I did his funeral. I remember going to a full gospel businessmen's meeting within a year after I had been baptized in the Holy Spirit. And Shirley and I were there, and they were having it at the Presidential Inn over in Vineland at the time. And there was this woman, I'd never seen her before, but anyway, she went up to get prayed for at the front, and she had a little boy, a little red-headed boy. He's probably about 4 or 5 years old maybe. And so when she went up, I just happened to be there, and I took the little guy and set him on my lap. And he sat on my lap while his mom was prayed for. And the power of God was so intense there, so intense, that she was down on the floor for at least 20 to 30 minutes. She had been fully baptized in the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, and they were real tongues. When she came back, she got up, she came back, she took her little boy, she looked at me to tell me thanks and couldn't speak a word of English. All she could speak was tongues. I gave her the little boy. Found out later, I didn't know who she was, but I found out she was going to First Assembly in Millville. And about 6 months after this experience, she overdosed on pills and died. Question came to my mind, that woman go to heaven or did she die? She'd go to hell. Now, look, I'm just dealing with myself here, and I'm not trying to create any type of a doctrine, but I tell you, I think it is more difficult to lose the love of God than we have been taught. Jesus did not come to condemn the world. He didn't come to keep you under condemnation. He did not come to keep you under fear of wrath. He came to set you free. He came because He loved you. While you were yet a no good, rotten scoundrel sinner, He died for you. And in Isaiah 52, it says that by faith, He was the kernel of corn that fell into the ground, so that he might germinate and come up and find his brethren. He died in faith, believing that you would receive his love and that you'd allow that love to set you free. He doesn't want you to live your whole life in fear of condemnation. Now, it's better to gouge your eye out if your eye causes you to sin than to keep it than to go to hell. You don't want to go to hell. But Jesus did not come to put you into condemnation. He came to set you free of guilt and fear and to see him as a friend. There is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. Now, I'm just laying the groundwork here. Right? Because if you look at Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, it says, "For I know," I'm reading from the Amplified, "I know the thoughts and plans that I have for you." Stop. God has thoughts and plans for you. He had those thoughts and plans for you before you were ever conceived. He knew you were coming before the world was ever formed. You're not an accident.